Birkenau and you're working in the camp. Is that correct?
At first, so that was my encounter, the first encounter with the Sunday Commando. Then we went to a quarantine because at that point, at one time, Auschwitz had typhoid and all kinds of sicknesses. And so at that time, they made sure the people wouldn't bring diseases with them. So we were in quarantine. So it was just walking a whole day, just walking, doing nothing at all. We, by the way, after we got in, we went actually through the room. We stripped the same way people went to the gas chambers. We went to the same rooms up to the gas chamber. We did not go into the gas chamber.
Although at one point you were herded into the gas chamber.
Later on.
And you had a piece of bread.
That's right, yes, you remember.
And what was that story?
That story was that we went through a selection, and I still was a child. My mother always was behind me, and the German put me on the left side, and so my mother said that my daughter in German, she told him, and I want to go with her, and he said, there you go. And she was about 39, 40 years old. To him, that was old. By the way, when people speak old people, 40 was old. 30-something was old already. They consider it old. 20, you were still young. So most of us would have been like by their standard. So anyway, we were picked the selection to be, we didn't know that we were going to put to death, but I don't know. And we went to, we had to strip, we went to that place, and we went into a room, and all of a sudden, stripped naked, but I know the clothes were somewhere near. I remember because we grabbed our clothes later, but we were naked. My mother still had that little pouch, which she bought a needle for a piece of bread from one of the Canada people that was sorting thing. It was like a fortune. A piece of bread was a fortune. But she got the needle, she ripped off a piece of cloth from her dress and made a pouch, and she kept the bread. I said, I don't want to die hungry. So apparently I did realize at that time that we are going to die.
And what happened?
And all of a sudden, we're naked.
You eat the bread. And what did your mother say?
My mother said, you're going to be hungry later. You're going to complain. And I said, I don't want to die hungry. I don't care. And so she gave me the bread. She gave me her bread too, because, and besides that, I think I did not want to leave on this earth a piece of bread. I didn't want to leave for the Germans a piece of bread. I felt that this is the only worldly possession that had a value, and it had a great value, because for a loaf of bread, you could get the biggest diamond on earth.
And they call off at the last minute.
And all of a sudden, they screamed. The Germans came with the dogs, always dogs. Raus, raus, get out, get out, get out, screaming. So we went out. We grabbed our clothes. Somehow, I remember we grabbed, because clothes was like, also, if you didn't have clothes, that was a death sentence. You needed something. By clothes, I mean only a top layer. We had no underwear, no panties, no. Well, I did get a panties at one time. I say a woman did give me. She was going actually in a selection, and she took off her panties and she gave them to me. So I did have panties. So we grabbed the dress, and I grabbed my panties and my mother, and everything had to be quick, because you didn't want to be beaten They were beating you. Once you were beaten, they were so vicious that there was, even if you were alive, there was no chance for survival, because if you wouldn't stand in the appel where they counted you, if you were hurt in any way, they would have sent you anyway to get.
And so you're 8 months there, is that correct?
So
in Auschwitz-Birkenau, 8 months.
Yes.
You're working most of that time.
And we worked at the only thing we worked outside at one point. I don't remember where, if we were working in fields or whatever. I do not remember, but I remember where we made braids out of, I don't know what you call it, like oilcloth that they used to make tablecloth, but tiny little pieces. They had to be so worked in, and made a braid, about an inch braid, and very long. We rolled it into a ball, and once, whenever they felt like the Germans, they came in. There were posts in the barracks where we worked, and one would grab one end, hold on the post, the other German would stand on the other post and pull. If it fell apart, that person was beaten almost to death.
And I think you said that you thought these were for the door insulation on planes.
That's what we were told.
So the Russians are advancing. They decide to what they call the death march.
We did not know that.
But everybody has to leave the camp.
Yes.
You, the night before, eat, I think, turnips with your mother.
We were just walking, and we came across a barrack, because my mother
You'd already left the camp in the death march.
Most people left. At that point, most people, but she was still, because she didn't know if she'll be able to walk.
Because she had diarrhea. She was sick, right?
That was after
that was after.
That was after the turnips.
I see.
That was after.
So she was already very weak.
But she was weak because it was a tough winter. It was a very, very. I realized that later on, much later. At that point, I didn't. But she was cold, and she was. As a matter of fact, I used to say, pretend that it's hot and you warm. Don't say that you cold. I just tried to somehow, and her shoes broke, so she had wooden shoes. Feet was worn. But anyway, so we were. The camp is almost empty. We walk around, and we came across a barrack with turnips. Now, we could not eat too much because I made a little knife out of a stay from a corset that I found miraculously. I sharpened it. That's how we cut bread. We were able to make a sandwich. People were not. They had to crumble the bread. I was able to slice a bread the thinnest you could see through it. And we were the envy of everybody. But anyway, whatever we could with that little piece of, imagine like just a square little, but sharpened, whatever we could cut from that turnip we had, because you could not eat. And besides, our stomach couldn't take anymore. And at that point, my mother said, if we'll stay here, they will blow up. They said that they will blow up all the whole camp, the dynamite. So she said, you might have a chance, if we'll go on the march, you might have a chance to survive. And I didn't realize that it wasn't the two of us. Mm. At that time, I did not think of ever being by myself.
And so you're on the march,
so
it's
she
winter,
decided,
it's the snow.
So we walked out of the gate and joined the columns of marching. We marched through the night. I remember my mother showed me lights from far. She said that that's Katowice. So we passed like within visual distance.
Which was the town
of
you grew
my
up in.
town
Right.
where I grew up, yes. But there were just fields. There was no way of running away because there were fields covered by snow, no trees, no nothing. And and you had to walk quickly. So we walk. And I think it was next morning. I don't remember if we lasted for the night, through the night and the next day. Oh, I think it was the next morning. Also, it was a beautiful morning. And by that time, we saw already bodies on the side of the road. One body stands out in my mind because the woman sort of must have been kneeling. If she was praying or what, she was kneeling with her head bent down. That's how she was shot, and that's how she stayed, and she's in my mind. And I'm trying to individualize the people, not hold them all together. So whoever I can remember. So anyway, there were bodies on the side, but you had no time. There was no stopping to the bathroom to go. So that was out of the question because you moved out of your row. That was it. You couldn't pick up a little snow because that would, if you bend down. But my mother started feeling dizzy. So I held on to her. And then I asked someone if they would help me. So somebody else took her by the arm, and she walked for a little while. And as we left Auschwitz, they gave us a little bit of sugar, which to this day I can't remember in what way they gave us. If it was just put in the pouch. So my mother said, could you give me a little sugar? And I put my hand in and I gave her that little sugar. And then she said, could you give me a little snow? And I did bend down and I did get her a little snow. But she was dizzy. She said, I can't walk. And I don't know how, that moment I don't remember, but there was a tree. And she just sat down by a tree, and I stood. And at that same moment, there was a column. There had thousands of people, women walking. And all of a sudden, the German just materialized. There were Germans, the Wehrmacht, the plain soldiers with a rifle. He was an officer, because by his clothes, you could see. Beautifully dressed, the uniform perfect, as if it was just pressed. And he drew a gun. He took out his gun, and I told him, listen, my mother needs just a few minutes of rest, and she'll be fine, she'll be going. And I spoke to him in German. But I don't remember if I spoke fluent German. I think I still did. And he just looked, and people feel that maybe it's wrong, but I think I saw like a little human something in his eyes, and there was like a smile in his eyes, like a sparkle eyes. And I told him, you have a mother, you can understand that. She'll be fine, she's okay, she's just a little dizzy. And he had that look, and I thought I won him over. But apparently, in some ways, I did win him over because he didn't shoot me. Because normally, they would have shot and just kicked my body to the side of the road. And he didn't. He had the guards. He called the guards, and they started beating me with their rifle, the butts of their rifles and whatever, and he shot my mother.
Had to eat out the watermelon patch.